The American Federation of Teachers is the premier education organization in Corpus Christi, Texas. We are a family of professionals with state and national affiliations, including the Texas AFT, AFT, and the AFL-CIO. CCAFT represents teachers, librarians, counselors, paraprofessionals, bus drivers, and maintenance workers. Our main concern is the well-being and public education of our children in the Coastal Bend. CCAFT is producing this program to keep our community abreast of educational issues during the 2013 legislative session and to highlight the good news in our local public schools. CCAFT is the only educational employee organization in Corpus Christi with the strength, courage, capacity, and resolve to affect positive change at the local, state, and national levels for our kids, for them to achieve the American dream in our democratic society. No more excuses. Our children come first, and we are here to do everything we can to ensure that our legislature does right by our kids in 2013. AFT stands for the American Federation of Teachers, but it also stands for all families together. Good evening and welcome to another program by the Corpus Christi American Federation of Teachers. This is the CCAFT Legislative Report for 2013. And I'm Dr. Nancy Vetta. I'm a practicing classroom teacher, and I'd like to introduce to you today Mr. Ray McMurray, President of the Corpus Christi American Federation of Teachers.
Thank you, Dr. Vetta.
How are you, Ray?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be here again, as always. Thank you so much,
here.
Dr. Vetta.
So today, Ray, we have a few things that we want to talk about. I'm really excited about the show because we're going to have a man by the name of Brian Jones on.
Correct.
What did he do?
Brian Jones is a teacher from New York City.
Okay, why are we interviewing a teacher from New York City?
Well, first, he's coming to Corpus Christi. He's going to be in town this weekend.
Okay.
He is going to be the keynote speaker out at Texas A&M in the Social Justice Forum that's put on. This is the third year for the Social Justice Forum, so they're bringing him as the keynote speaker. But where he really made his name is he's the producer of the documentary An Inconvenient Truth behind Waiting for Superman.
Okay, and what is Waiting for Superman?
Well,
and the inconvenient truth about Waiting for Superman.
Right. Well, Brian Jones really made a name for himself by countering the education reform movement. I mean, the Waiting for Superman came out about 2 years ago, and it was funded by a lot of corporate money, Gates Foundation money, a lot of pro-voucher, pro-charter folks.
Bashing public education.
Oh, you bet. I mean, the whole idea,
as usual,
the whole idea is to try to frame public schools as underperforming and failing.
Evil.
And then allow this accountability system to gravitate towards, school choice, and allow parents the trigger to take their voucher and to allow their kids to go somewhere else. And Brian Jones put that in perspective. I mean, Brian Jones really said, you know what, let's tell the truth about this. And you and I have talked about vouchers already, Dr. Vetta. So we know the damage that it does on the revenue side and on the student achievement side.
Well, I can't wait for that part of the program to come up. But we also have another guest on the program today. It's a Mr. Leroy DeHaven, who is the district president of the Retired Teachers Association. Is that right?
Correct. And I have been talking to him because they're very interested in what's happening in the legislature this session with the teacher retirement system, TRS, the pension system that our public school employees really have to live off of in this state.
Well, I'm really getting a lot of questions from teachers at my school and wherever I go in the grocery store asking me, are they going to change the multiplier? Are they going to take some of our TRS benefits away? What's happening?
Right. Well, that's one of the things we wanted to focus on tonight is what's happening with TRS. And in this legislative session, are we going to see changes in reform to TRS? And I can tell you there's fear-mongering going on out there. There's a lot of rumors.
Yeah, the teachers are panicking.
They really are. And you have to realize that part of the problem is that our teachers don't get Social Security even though they might have paid into it.
That's not fair.
We'll get into Social Security fairness later, but the reality is that makes it exacerbates the concern about TRS because this is, for a lot of teachers, this is what they're going to live off of. And the TRS system is the state pension for school employees. And whether you're a custodian, whether you're a food service worker, a bus driver, counselor, teacher, principal, everybody pays into TRS. And it is a very, very solid fund. The taxpayers should really understand that TRS is solvent. It is fully funded until really 2086, even if we never put another penny in it. I mean, this is a solid pension fund for our school employees. But there are folks, because it's so solid, there are some folks that want to look at ways to privatize the public pension. And there, around the country, there's been an attack on public pensions, Dr. Veda. And the idea that we have a defined benefit, and that's kind of what we're really going to fight for this session. We want to protect the defined benefit, which means that a school employee is going to look at your age, and I'm not going to ask you yours or
Please
mine.
don't.
We're going to take our age whenever we retire.
Yeah.
We're going to look at how many years we served the public school system, what was our years of service, and then you kind of push that against what's called the multiplier. And right now it's 2.3. And then you get a formula, and with that formula, you get a defined benefit. You know exactly how much you're going to get every month for the rest of your life. And we go into this business knowing we're not going to get rich, okay? We went into public education knowing that we were performing a public service for our community, for our kids, for families, and to the future of this economic system in our state. But we perform a job for the public. We get a public pension, and that public pension has a defined benefit. And we know what that's going to be every month. And then these Wall Street people want to now tinker with that. What they want to do is take away the defined benefit. In this session, that's going to be their attempt. We know who they are. And they want to make it a defined contribution. All right, they want to go with the defined contribution. Now, the only thing that's for sure is how much that comes out of your paycheck every month. And it will then fluctuate with the market like a 401k, and you allow private investors to pull money from the public pension and kind of invest it in more of these in these private sector opportunities, and it destroys our guarantee. Our public pension, which we have cherished for so long in Texas and as school employees, and it's a modest income compared to other states. It's not we're not living large but it's solvent. I mean, the TRS pension system is solvent, and it provides a modest, stable income for all of our school employees, and we want to preserve it.
Well, Ray, I worked outside of the school district for a few years, and I accumulated quite a bit of Social Security, but I'm not going to get that. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's another part of what's devastating about teaching and working in public schools in Texas, that there is an offset. You're right. Once you take your TRS, you become ineligible, and there is a formula that's used to diminish what you're eligible for.
But I put money into that.
Well,
it's my money.
That's a federal issue. Now, that law has to pass in Washington, D.C. It's called Social Security funds.
Have we talked to Blake Farenthold about that?
That's one of the things that we did talk to Mr. Farenthold's office about, and he has not been forthcoming so far as to sign on. But how do we right here, we are teaming with the police officers, the firefighters, the state employees. We want to protect our public pension. And we know it's Bill King, who is a corporate banker and lobbyist, who was going to run for mayor in Houston in 2009. He is a Republican, and he has formed a group called Texas Against Public Pensions. And I have a quote, Dr. Vedder. Let me just read this one quote. This quote came from his partner in crime is an ex-Enron executive.
Of course.
Okay, and here is their quote.
Enron.
I think the state needs to get the hell out of this pension business completely. So these are folks that want to really see the dismantling of the public pension system.
I'm tired of all these bullies. We have bullies at the state level. We have bullies at the national level. They just why are they such haters, Ray, against teachers and school employees?
Well,
what have we done to deserve this kind of treatment?
You're right. I mean, this is where if they attack the public pension system in this session, it's going to be like kicking a dog while it's down. And that's unacceptable. I mean, we have had enough cuts where our students and our schools are underfunded. And now to go after the very fabric of the public pension, which is just a modest income for our school employees. The state, by the Constitution, pays in about 6%, and then we as employees pay in 6.4%. So we're paying into our own pension based from our own income. And I think a lot of taxpayers don't realize that, is that in Texas, we're paying for our own pensions. We're not just taking it from the taxpayers. And it's a modest income. So we feel like we deserve this pension. It should be protected. And if you or any of your family members work in public schools in this state, you know that public pension system is a defined benefit, and it's a worthy cause to defend it.
Well, this is a serious issue.
It really
and
is.
I can't wait to hear more from Leroy DeHaven
Right.
about it. He's, like I said earlier, he's the district president of the Retired Teachers Association, and we interviewed him just recently, and here's what he had to say.
Hello, my name is Ray McMurray, and I am here with a special guest tonight, Mr. Leroy Haven, who is the president of our district for TRS and retirees. And I want to let him introduce himself and kind of talk about your position What is your actual position?
Okay, my actual position right now, I'm very actively involved with the local Retired Teachers Association. I'm also the district president of District 2 of the Retired Teachers Association. And I'm also on the state legislative board of the Texas Retired Teachers Association.
And among the Texas retirees, how many districts are there? We're District 2.
Yes, we're District 2, and it follows the Educational Service Centers.
Okay.
So there are 20 districts. There are around 75,000 retired teachers that belong to the TRTA. There are about 330,000 retired teachers in the state of Texas.
Wow, I would have not imagined 330,000 living retired teachers in the state of Texas.
Of those 330,000 teachers, there are over 200 that are over 100 years of age. Now, the TRS system, the teacher retirement system in the state of Texas, was established by the state constitution in 1937. And in that constitution, it states that the retiree should have a retirement system, and the state should contribute between 6% and 10% of the active teacher's payroll each year to the TRS system. Now, the problem is the TRS system is a very wealthy system. It has all goes in the system to not only start the retirement of that beginning teacher, but also to take care of those 200 plus teachers that are over 100 years of age. So it's a wide spectrum that the TRS takes care of.
Okay, now those that are already retired in the system.
Okay.
We understand that the TRS system in Texas does not have an automatic adjustment for inflation.
There is no code.
Tell us about those that are living on a fixed income with TRS. How long has it been since they've had any increase?
Good question. It's been since 2001 since we have had any increase. I retired in 1997. And I have not had an increase in my pension since 2001. Now, we did receive what was called a 13th check in 2006, but that's the only
in 1 year only.
In 1 year only.
Yeah. And let's be honest. I mean, when you look at gas, utilities, if you're paying for a cost of higher education for anybody in your family, I mean, that's with no increase.
The average annuity check of retirees is less than $1,800 a month. Now, take in mind that superintendents, retirees, all the way down to the bus driver, the average is less than $1,800 a month.
This is not a public pension that we're somehow abusing the taxpayer.
No, not at all.
I mean, what compared to the rest of the country, what does Texas look like in terms of what the employee is actually paying into the pension system?
Okay, well, our employees do pay into the retirement system. Active teachers pay 6.4% of their paycheck into the system every month. Our system is in good shape. It is not in any danger of folding like some of the other systems are. And there's a movement across the state to change our system from what is called a defined benefit program into a defined contribution program.
Right.
As our system is set up now, you will receive a paycheck for the rest of your life. But under the defined contribution plan, which some people want to change it to, you're not guaranteed a paycheck for the rest of your life.
And that's a very scary thing for a lot of people, because when we go into this business, I mean, you retired in 97?
Yes.
And I taught for 18 years. I mean, we knew that we were not going to get rich in education.
Sure.
But we knew we were performing a public service.
Yes.
And that there would be a pension and that there would be health care. And for us to pull the rug out and leave our retirees in this kind of situation is I think it leaves a really bad taste.
When you go into teaching, you enter a contract with the state, that the state will provide you a salary for an annuity check for the rest of your life. And that's a very important part. It's not a burden on our taxpayers, but it does come from taxpayers' money, but yet it's a contract that we were entered into, with the state when we start teaching.
Right. So in a sense, the Texas it's been deemed unconstitutional in terms of how they fund education for students.
Right.
And in reality, on the retirement end, for those employees, they're not upholding even their constitutional
The
requirements.
legislators are not upholding what they need to make the system what they call actuary sound. And that's what the problem is.
And so if the choice is the state pays more by increasing their contribution, or make the employees pay more by taking more out of their paycheck.
Right.
Based on what you know about this legislature, what do you expect to happen this session?
All the legislators tell us what we want to hear. They're good at telling us what we want to hear.
Yes.
And they all say they're very supportive of our objective and mission.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes down to the last point, we'll just have to see how it all comes out. I know the money is there this year, but everybody wants a piece of the pie. There's extra money there, but we want a piece of the pie too.
Exactly.
We do.
And we're the ones that have invested the blood, sweat, and tears
Yes.
and the years into this system.
Right.
And those that have taken care of our youth deserve to be taken care of when it's
I
over.
believe they do. Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr.
Well, thank
Ed.
you. We appreciate
It's an honor to have you with us.
And if I can be of any help to you, you let me know.
Well, we want to invite you to attend Lobby Day with us, March 11th.
We're going to be there on March 20th. The
Okay.
retired teachers are, so I'll look at my calendar and see.
Well, if you go with us, I'll go with you.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank
bet.
you.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Cut.
And that was Leroy DeHaven and his take on the teacher retirement system in Texas.
Can you believe, Nancy, that they have not had a cost of living adjustment since 2001?
I know that. You know how I know that? My mother
Yeah.
gets teacher retirement, and she hasn't had any increase in that darn paycheck.
That's really to think. If you
pension.
think about how, the cost of food, utilities, gas, if anybody's paying for a college education for a family member, I mean, what's happened to the cost of living over the last 10, 11 years? And to think that these people living on a fixed income have not seen one automatic increase in their cost of living.
That's cruel and inhumane, right?
Well, it's certainly a
And
hardship.
speaking about cruel and inhumane, the way we were treated as teachers, let's talk again about Brian Jones and our interview with him. We interviewed him at the Social Justice Conference Forum. And can you tell us a little bit more about what he's going to talk about in the interview?
Right. I mean, Brian Jones is a New York City school teacher and public school employee. And he has extensive background in really responding to the corporate reform, education reform movement. And he is very concerned with the amount of money that has gone into the political mobilization effort around ALEC and some of these other special interest groups that have an eye on the public school system and try to convert them and privatize them over to a business model.
Okay.
And so Brian Jones has probably done more research than anybody else in the country to kind of look at what is the damage of the corporatization of schools. And he's here to really, in Corpus Christi, to talk about on a large scale, what has the privatization movement done to the quality and the integrity of our public sector in general.
Good for him.
Not just public education.
Good for him. I know he's an activist.
Right.
So that's going to end our program. Our interview with him is going to end our program today. Remember that we are going to be going to the Capitol on March the 11th for Lobby Day. We hope you join us. Ray, do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I mean, before we go to Lobby Day on March the 3rd, aren't we going to have an appearance somewhere? Is it March the 3rd or March the 4th? Are we going to, aren't we going on the Domingo show?
Oh, that's right. We're
Yeah.
going to be on the Domingo show on March the 3rd. That's a Sunday, if we've got our dates right, Ray.
I'm like, wait a minute, I know you told me that.
I was looking at you, so, oh no.
And I did invite Abel Herrero today, and I'm hoping he's going to join us.
All
So we're going
right.
to make a guest appearance on the Domingo show on that Sunday before we leave. And, again, we want to continue inviting the public and saying, look, we're all AFT, all families together, and we want to go to Austin together, and we're hoping that you are able to kind of see what Abel has to say. And before we cut, I do need to thank Abel Herrera one more time, because he sent a letter to Governor Perry just this week, and he teamed up with 8 other legislators, and they sent a very direct letter to Governor Perry saying that the state of public education is the most pressing issue facing the state of Texas today. And he said we have to make this priority number 1. And we do that by putting the $5.4 billion back. We have to restore the funding.
Yeah, yay for Abel.
You bet. I mean, it really is. I mean,
I'm so proud of him.
No one is speaking up for our kids and public education like Abel Herrero. I mean, this guy is a true champion of working people and our public sectors. and children and families, and making sure that there's equality of opportunity moving
Yeah.
into the 21st century. This guy's something else.
He's one of the few political elected officials that I respect and that I trust. He's just so honest and so good.
Right.
And I'm very proud that he's representing us in Austin.
I mean, when we think today about what it means to be a public servant, and we see a lot of the money in politics, and we see the special interest.
Yes.
When you have somebody like Abel Herrero there standing up for our kids the way he is in the face of all of the corporatization and cuts, you really have to admire.
And he doesn't back down.
No, he doesn't.
He's
really
tough,
doesn't.
but he's honest, and he's
smart as a whip.
Smart as a whip.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Ray, for being on the show today. We're going to end with Brian Jones' interview. I hope to see all of you, or we hope that you'll join us next time on the CCAFT Legislative Report. It's important that you get involved. Remember, all families together, the Corpus Christi American Federation of Teachers.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night.
We're very honored to have a special guest in Corpus Christi, Brian Jones, who helped direct and produce the movie The Inconvenient Truth Behind Waiting for Superman. And this has been really the premier defense of public education in a world where we are seeing an attack on our schools, our public education system, and really an overall corporatization of our schools. So we're honored to have you, Brian. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. It is great to have you in Corpus Christi. Tell me a little bit about what's going on in the United States with kind of the corporatization of our schools. What's really happening with the funding, and what's the political agenda behind some of what we're seeing with the corporatization of public education?
Well, what I see happening is a transformation of public education from something that is organized around the concept of the public good and public funds to something that, as you said, is being privatized, being funneled into the private sector, and really reorganized around free business principles and ideas. So instead of guaranteed tax-supported public education, increasingly you have budget cuts that limit the budgetary base for public education, and then that's supplemented with philanthropy. And so the philanthropists come in, and they're perceived or touted as heroes and saviors of the public schools, but really with their money comes a great deal of control. And so philanthropy becomes a kind of way to bypass democratic accountability, and many of these philanthropists effectively set education policy with money. So
Like the Gates Foundation.
the Gates Foundation, the Broad Foundation, Mark Zuckerberg gives money to New Jersey, and with that money comes, you have to do this with charter schools, you have to do this with teacher evaluation. So it's very leveraged.
And within that movement, we see this idea that somehow saving impoverished students in low-income neighborhoods, this is the new civil rights movement, that these philanthropists are going to come in and lift these students up.
Right.
How is that kind of a facade? I mean, how is that really not dealing with the issue, and how are we really not serving low socioeconomically disadvantaged students in that process?
Well, I mean, it's a very convenient narrative, frankly, for the recession to say that the billionaires are the saviors. They're the ones who are altruistic. They're the ones who, just are thinking of the students. That's all they care about.
Yeah.
And especially the poorest students, and especially students of color.
Yeah.
Right. They've always been the saviors.
That's why they've already gone in and fixed their streets, and fixed their parks in their neighborhoods,
Fix their health care. Right.
Yeah.
That's right. But the flip side of it is that at the same time, the other side of the coin of that narrative is that the people who you really can't trust, the people who are selfish, self-interested, and greedy, are the teachers.
Right.
So it's almost like we need more billionaire teachers.
Yeah. So they've turned the whole paradigm upside down in terms of what we've thought of traditionally as the teachers as public servants.
Right.
Sacrificing so much, really to lift students up. Now all of a sudden they're the evil ones.
Right.
And the billionaires and the corporations are going to rush in and save them.
Are the heroes.
Yeah.
But you also touch upon the question of racial justice. And I think what we have to say is that yes, there are communities that have been underserved and devastated and for decades, and including in some places in their schools.
Right.
And we have to join with those communities to fight for the schools that they deserve and the kind of services that they deserve. But the idea that ripping up public schools and replacing it with a free market model is going to create racial justice is just absurd. Because you look at the places where they've already accomplished this, and instead of racial justice, you get recreations of racial hierarchy, like New Orleans, where they now have basically effectively destroyed the public school system. Instead, they have a portfolio model where the superintendent literally says his job is just to close schools down and bring online new operators. And by selecting and deselecting operators of schools, we're going to eventually get all great schools, except what they really have is a competitive system where the poorer and darker you are, the more expensive you are to educate, the more services you need, the needier you are, the more you're stuck at the bottom.
Marginalized. Yeah, no doubt. Well, let me ask you this. Moving forward, we have race to the top under the Obama administration. What does that look like? What do you think, what changes could potentially come in the second term with Obama and race to the top?
Well, I really have no idea. I wish that Obama would turn away from race to the top. But unfortunately, I don't see any sign of that. I think that we in the AFT and NEA and anywhere where teachers and educators and parents and students are organized have to call upon Obama to reverse course and have to challenge, frankly, Obama. Even though I know that a lot of teachers are loyal supporters of Obama, I think that we have to speak up as educators and challenge those policies.
Right.
Because I think they're just not in the best interests of teaching and learning. Because many of the changes that are coming because of Race to the Top is even more teaching to the test, for example, because it demands that we tie teacher evaluations to test scores. Even I was disappointed in the State of the Union address. Calling for more early childhood intervention is great, except that along with that is the specification that all of these kind of measurable outcomes be part of the package.
And maybe even push testing into the kindergarten level.
Exactly.
It's just another avenue for
Right.
the expansion of
Right.
high stakes testing.
Yeah.
But let me ask you one last question. When we look at poverty, drug addiction, homelessness, is it easier for these philanthropists and the corporate agenda to come in and blame the schools as opposed to investing in the real wraparound services that we lack and the social elements and negatives that around homelessness, drug addiction, poverty? Isn't it easier to blame the schools than deal with those things?
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, look at who's behind this whole privatization campaign. People like the Walton family, who are the owners of Walmart. So we're supposed to believe that they are just trying to figure out how to set children up in the best possible way, yet look at how they treat adults who work for them. They have adults working for them full-time, nearly full-time hours, who are in poverty. And yet they are going to turn around and try to portray public schools as trapping kids in poverty. It's so hypocritical. So we have to have a more holistic view. I think we have to have the view that the interests of children and the interests of adults, rather than being pitted against each other, are actually tied together and bound up with each other. Like, if we want to do things that are going to be good for children, we have to do good things that are good for parents.
Right.
We have to make it easier to be a parent, not harder to be a parent. We have to make it easier to be a child, not harder to be a child. And frankly, I think we have to make it, instead of making it hot for teachers or holding a sword over their head, that's going to get better teaching out of them. It's just really the wrong way to look at it. And I think, frankly, we have to understand that underneath all of that is a kind of anti-union idea, that really it's about breaking up the power of unions, and teachers' unions is one of the largest unions still standing in America.
Right.
It's obviously a prime target.
Yeah, I mean, the unions are, in a sense, the last defense
Yeah.
to the corporate takeover of our schools and moving to charters and vouchers and turning this whole thing into a business entrepreneurial opportunity.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you in Corpus Christi. Thank you.